Dame Carol Ann Duffy DBE FRSL is a Scottish poet and playwright. She is Professor of Contemporary Poetry at Manchester Metropolitan University, and was appointed Britain's Poet Laureate in May 2009. She is the first woman, the first Scot, and the first openly LGBT person to hold the position. Her collections include Standing Female Nude, winner of a Scottish Arts Council Award, Selling Manhattan, which won a Somerset Maugham Award, Meantime, which won the Whitbread Poetry Award, and Rapture, winner of the T.S. Eliot Prize. Her poems address issues such as oppression, gender, and violence in an accessible language that has made them popular in schools. Early life. Carol Ann Duffy was born to a Roman Catholic family in the Gorbals, a poor part of Glasgow. She was the first child of Frank Duffy, an electrical fitter, and Mary Black. The couple went on to have another 4 children, all boys. The family moved to Stafford, England, when Duffy was 6 years old. Her father worked for English Electric. He was a trade unionist, and stood unsuccessfully as a parliamentary candidate for the Labour Party in 1983. He also managed Stafford Rangers Football Club in his spare time. Duffy was educated in Stafford at St Austin's R.C. Primary School, St Joseph's Convent School, and Stafford Girls' High School. Her literary talent encouraged by 2 English teachers, June Scriven at St Joseph's, and Jim Walker at Stafford Girls' High. She was a passionate reader from an early age, and always wanted to be a writer, producing poems from the age of 11. When one of her English teachers died, she wrote, "Career." When Duffy was 15, June Scriven sent her poems to Outposts, a publisher of pamphlets, where it was read by the bookseller Bernard Stone, who published some of them. When she was 16, she met Adrian Henry, one of the Liverpool poets, and decided she wanted to be with him, and then lived with him until 1982. "He gave me confidence," she said. "He was great. It was all poetry, very heady, and he was never faithful. He thought poets had a duty to be unfaithful." Quote, she applied to the University of Liverpool to be near him, and began a philosophy degree there in 1974. She had 2 plays performed at the Liverpool Playhouse, wrote a pamphlet, Fifth Last Song, and received an honours degree in philosophy in 1977. She worked as poetry critic for The Guardian from 1988 to 1989, and was editor of the poetry magazine, Hambert. In 1996, she was appointed as a lecturer in poetry at Manchester Metropolitan University, and later became creative director of its writing school. Duffy was almost appointed Poet Laureate of the United Kingdom in 1999 after the death of Ted Hughes, but lost out on the position to Andrew Motion. Duffy said she would not have accepted the position at the time anyway, because she was in a relationship with Scottish poet Jackie Kay, had a young daughter, and would not have welcomed the public attention. In the same year, she was elected as a Fellow of the Royal Society of Literature. She was appointed as Poet Laureate on the 1st of May 2009, when Motion's 10-year term was over. Duffy was featured on the South Bank Show with Melvyn Bragg in December 2009, and on the 7th of December she presented the Turner Prize to artist Richard Wright. Duffy received an honorary doctorate from Heriot-Watt University in 2009. Poet Laureate. In her first poem as Poet Laureate, Duffy tackled the scandal over British MPs' expenses in the format of a sonnet. Her second-last post was commissioned by the BBC to mark the deaths of Henry Allingham and Harry Patch, the last 2 British soldiers to fight in World War I. Her third, The 12 Days of Christmas 2009, addresses current events such as species extinction, the climate change conference in Copenhagen, the banking crisis, and the war in Afghanistan. In March 2010, she wrote Achilles about the Achilles tendon injury that left David Beckham out of the English football team at the 2010 FIFA World Cup. The poem was published in the Daily Mirror and treats modern celebrity culture as a kind of mythicization. Silver Lining, written in April 2010, acknowledges the grounding of flights caused by the ash of the Icelandic volcano Eyjafjallajökull. On the 30th of August 2010 she premiered her poem Vigil for the Manchester Pride Candlelight Vigil in memory of LGBT people who have lost their lives to HIV/AIDS. Duffy wrote a 46-line poem Rings for the 2011 wedding of Prince William and Catherine Middleton. The poem celebrates the rings found in nature and does not specifically mention the couple's names. It begins for both to say and continues, I might have raised your hand to the sky to give you the ring surrounding the moon, or looked to twin the rings of your eyes with mine, or added a ring to the rings of a tree by forming a handheld circle with you. She wrote the verse with Stephen Raw, a textual artist, and a signed print of the work was sent to the couple as a wedding gift. Duffy also read the poem The Throne, which she composed for the 60th anniversary of Queen Elizabeth II's coronation, for the reinterment of Richard III at Leicester Cathedral in March 2015. She wrote a 14-line poem, Richard. The poem was read aloud during the service by actor Benedict Cumberbatch, who had portrayed the king in Shakespeare's play and is believed to be Richard's distant relative. In a stylized magazine, Duffy said of becoming Poet Laureate, there's no requirement. I'd get asked to do things and so far I've been happy to do them. Quote. She also spoke about being appointed to the role by Queen Elizabeth II, saying, she's lovely. I met her before I became Poet Laureate, but when I was appointed I had an audience with her, which meant we were alone at the palace. For the first time, we chatted about poetry. Her mother was friends with Ted Hughes, whose poetry I admire a lot. We spoke about his influence on me. Poetry style. Duffy's work explores both everyday experience and the rich fantasy life of herself and others. In dramatizing scenes from childhood, adolescence, and adult life, she discovers moments of consolation through love, memory, and language. Charlotte Mendelssohn writes in The Observer, part of Duffy's talent, besides her ear for ordinary eloquence, her gorgeous, powerful, throwaway lines, her subtlety, is her ventriloquism. Like the best of her novelist peers, she slides in and out of her characters, lives on a stream of possessions, aspirations, idioms and turns of phrase. However, she is also a time traveler and a shape-shifter, gliding from Troy to Hollywood, galaxies to intestines, sloughed off skin to department stores, while other poets make heavy weather of one kiss, one kick, one letter. From verbal nuances to mind-expanding imaginative leaps, her words seem freshly plucked from the minds of non-poets. That is, she makes it look easy. Of her own writing, Duffy has said, I'm not interested, as a poet, in words like plash, Seamus Heaney words, interesting words. I like to use simple words, but in a complicated way. She told The Observer, like the sand and the oyster, it's a creative irritant. In each poem, I'm trying to reveal a truth, so it can't have a fictional beginning. Duffy rose to greater prominence in UK poetry circles after her poem, Whoever She Was, won the Poetry Society National Poetry Competition in 1983. In her first collection, Standing Female Nude. She uses the voices of outsiders, for example in the poems Education for Leisure and Dear Norman. Her next collection, Feminine Gospels, continues this vein, showing an increased interest in long narrative poems, accessible in style and often surreal in their imagery. Her 2005 publication, Rapture, is a series of intimate poems charting the course of a love affair, for which she won the £10,000 T.S. Eliot Prize. In 2007, she published The Hat, a collection of poems for children. Online copies of her poems are rare, but her poem dedicated to U.A. Fanthorpe, Premonitions, is available through The Guardian, and several others via the Daily Mirror. In schools, her poems are studied in British schools at GCSE, National 5, A-level, and higher levels. In August 2008, her Education for Leisure, a poem about violence, was removed from the AQA Examination Board's GCSE Poetry Anthology, following a complaint about its references to knife crime and a goldfish being flushed down a toilet. The poem begins, "Today I'm going to kill something, anything. I have had enough of being ignored, and today I'm going to play God." The protagonist kills a fly, then a goldfish. The budgie panics and the cat hides. It ends with him, or her, leaving the house with a knife. The pavements glitter suddenly. I touch your arm. According to The Guardian, schools were urged to destroy copies of the unedited anthology, though this was later denied by UA. Duffy called the decision ridiculous. "It's an anti-violence poem," she said. "It is a plea for education rather than violence." Quote, she responded with Mrs. Schofield's GCSE, a poem about violence in other fiction, and the point of it. Explain how poetry pursues the human like the smitten moon, above the weeping, laughing earth. The Mrs. Schofield of the title refers to Pat Schofield, an external examiner at Lutterworth College, Leicestershire, who complained about Education for Leisure, calling it absolutely horrendous. For the new National Qualifications Higher English course in Scotland, Duffy's publishers, RCW Literacy Agency, refused permission for her poem, originally to be published in the paper. Anthology's annual competition for schools. In 2011, Duffy spearheaded a new poetry competition for schools, named Anthology's. The competition is administered by the Poetry Book Society and was launched by HRH the Duchess of Cornwall in September 2011. School students aged 11 to 18 from around the UK were invited to create and submit their own anthologies of published poetry. The 2011 Anthology's judges were Duffy, Gillian Clark, John Agard, Grace Nichols and Cambridge Professor of Children's Poetry, Morag Stiles. The first ever winners of Anthology's were the sixth form pupils of Monkton Combe School, Bath, with their anthology titled The Poetry of Earth is Never Dead, which was described by Duffy as assured and accomplished as any anthology currently on the bookshelves. Plays and songs. Duffy is also a playwright, and has had plays performed at the Liverpool Playhouse and the Almeida Theatre in London. Her plays include Take My Husband, Cavern of Dreams, Little Women, Big Boys Lost, Casanova. Her radio credits include an adaptation of Rapture. Her children's collections include Meeting Midnight and The Oldest Girl in the World. She also collaborated with the Manchester composer Sasha Johnson Manning on the Manchester Carols, a series of Christmas songs that premiered in Manchester Cathedral in 2007. She also participated in the Bush Theatre's 2011 Project 66 books, for which she wrote a piece based upon a book of the King James Bible. A modernized adaptation of Every Man by Carol Ann Duffy, with Chiwetel Ejiofor in the title role, was performed at the National Theatre from April to July 2015. honors and awards. She holds honorary doctorates from the University of Dundee, the University of Hull, the University of St Andrews, and the University of Warwick, as well as an honorary fellowship at Homerton College, Cambridge. She was appointed Officer of the Order of the British Empire in 1995, Commander of the Order of the British Empire in 2002, and Dame Commander of the Order of the British Empire in the 2015 New Year Honours for services to poetry, works, poetry collections, books for children and plays.